First of all, as Ginger said, thank you everyone for coming. We love having you here. And I'm very excited to introduce Nick Adams this evening. He comes to us from beautiful Australia. And I've been telling people for the last month, he's my favorite Australian American. He came to America, well, and I really like what he wrote in one of his books. And this is where you captured my heart, young man. 5 days before 9/11, he turned 17. And he said he knew at that moment it was up to his generation to protect protect America and Western civilization. And I had never thought about that. And in the recent days since El Paso and Ohio, it's really weighed on my heart more and more, because we don't have a generation that is truly protecting America, other than all these generations here in this room. We're hoping that we can reach out to our young people and bring them into our party and our conservative viewpoints. So I thank you for your efforts to protect us all and our way of life. Nick, as I said, is my favorite Australian American. He immigrated legally to the United States. I love that part. And not only did he immigrate here legally and face some obstacles due to a certain political party, which I'll remain nameless. Because remember, count back your years, this young man is 35 years old, and we were 10 years ago. It was the Obama administration. Anyway, by the time he was 30, he was a best-selling author. So that's quite an accomplishment in a short time period. It's an accomplishment for anyone, but especially if you are a new American. So congratulations. Yeah. And since then, he's had several books, and I was speed reading over the last few weeks 3 of his books. And we'll have those available for review and purchase after his talk tonight. But as I said, my favorite Australian American, we welcome you, Nick Adams.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. What an honor, pleasure, and privilege it is to be able to be here with each and every single one of you here tonight. It's great to be back in West Texas. If you can believe it, it was actually almost 3 years ago that I last found myself in Angelo, Texas. And that particular visit was very fruitful. I had the opportunity to speak at Cornerstone Christian School, the TLCA, Texas Leadership Charter Academy, and also one of the Republican women's groups. So it's fantastic to return 3 years later and see all of you, some for the first time and some for the second time. It has been quite the weekend. On Friday at lunchtime, I had the great privilege of speaking to around about 100 young people from all across America that had gathered at the Texas State Capitol during the summer to learn about the Constitution and politics and civics, and that was great. It was hosted by an organisation called Patriot Academy. And after that, my mum and dad, who have accompanied me on my trip, they're both here today, and my mother turns... It was my mother's birthday on Saturday. She turned 60 years old. So we took her to Fredericksburg, we took her to Kerrville, showed her a bit of the Texas Hill Country. She rather enjoyed that. I think she's planning on going back soon. So we made our way up here to San Angelo later in the weekend. I want to thank both Ginger and Kelly for organising for me to be here with you tonight. What an honour, pleasure and privilege it is to be in the land of the free and the home of the brave. In the world's exceptional nation, in civilization's indispensable country. And to top it all off, if all of that weren't enough, right here in West Texas! I have never been to a place where I have encountered more enthusiastic patriotism or genuine hospitality. But more than just loving the people, more than just loving the place, my message about American exceptionalism has got no greater or more fitting thing. Texas is the living and breathing embodiment of American exceptionalism. Free, confident, successful, patriotic. There is no more model society anywhere here on God's green earth. I love the moxie, swagger, and bravado of Texas and Texans. I love our merciless contempt for political correctness and our steadfast refusal to embrace the new morally debased and feminised world that we find ourselves living in. And I haven't even begun to mention Bluebell ice cream, chicken fried steak, jacked up pickup trucks, Buc-ee's, honey butter biscuits from Whataburger, custom-made cowboy boots, oversized belt buckles. I could go on and on and on. And it is for all of those reasons that I will never ever forget that grand day of the 13th of July 2013 when my good friend Governor, now Secretary Perry, appointed me an honorary Texan. Which is really quite something, because as all of you very well know, there are only two types of people in this world: Texans and those that wish they were. So now that I have established my Texan credentials beyond all possible dispute, let me share a little bit more with you about who I am. As all of you can very clearly tell from my accent, I hail from South Texas. Very deep southwest Texas. I was born in Australia in September of 1984, and next month I turn 35 years old. Most people wait a long time to have a life-changing moment. I didn't have to wait very long. At the age of 16 months, I was diagnosed with a very rare form of childhood cancer called neuroblastoma. And my parents were told that I had just a 5% chance of life, that only 1 in 20 survived. The tumour was in my abdomen but had metastasised throughout my body. And a child in that predicament, only 1 in 20 of them survived. And for 3.5 years, I had chemotherapy, radiotherapy and operation, and through the healing hands of God, our master physician, I defied the odds and lived. It was actually the instincts of an American doctor that saved my life. For many, many months, my parents had brought me to doctor after doctor, paediatrician after paediatrician, to work out what was wrong, but nobody could tell them. And one night, with me even more unsettled than usual, they took me to the emergency ward of the local children's hospital. And there was one overnight doctor there. He was a young man, an American, who had recently finished his studies in the United States and was doing a residency. And he looked at me and he said, "Look, I can't be sure, I don't know exactly, but I have a hunch that I might have seen this before, and you need to get your child back in here first thing tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. to have these tests conducted so that we can find out whether or not my hunch is correct." And it was, but it was his diagnosis just in the nick of time that made sure that I had a chance to fight and to survive. And I can tell you that that early adversity had a great impact on me and the way that I decided to approach my life. I determined that I had defeated the most powerful adversary that there was, and that everything after that was going to be child's play. And so I'm proud to tell you that Since that early adversity, I have been pretty much unstoppable. I was the valedictorian of my school. I was publicly elected to political office at the age of 19, becoming one of the youngest ever elected councilmen in Sydney, Australia. On the 13th of September 2005, just 8 days after my 21st birthday, I was elected the youngest deputy mayor in Australian history in Sydney, a record which still stands to this day. I was a best-selling author before I turned the age of 30. I had the distinction of being the first author to have ever had a book endorsed by a sitting president of the United States. And that honour was bestowed upon me on the 3rd of March 2017, when President Trump took to Twitter, where else, to declare that my book, Green Card Warrior, was a must-read and that I was a great American. Thank you. He followed it up 6 months later with another tweet about my previous book, Retaking America, Crushing Political Correctness. That does sound like his kind of book, doesn't it? Making me the only author to have had 2 books endorsed by a sitting president of the United States. And in fact, the president was photographed in September of 2017 boarding Marine One on his way to Camp David with Retaking America under his arm, which has led many in the media to rather generously refer to me as the president's favourite author. So that's been quite the journey. Many of you will recognise me from television. I am a Fox News and Fox Business commentator. I have spoken now in 40 of the 50 states, given keynote addresses in 6 different countries. I serve as a surrogate for the White House. I am recognised worldwide as an authority on American exceptionalism. In fact, I have decided to dedicate my life to promoting, protecting and perpetuating what I consider to be the greatest idea ever, the American idea. To top all of that off, if all of that weren't enough, on the 29th of July 2016, so 3 years ago and change, after 4.5 long and torturous and arduous years, including a stint on the no-fly list, courtesy of the Obama administration and John Kerry's State Department, and close to $50,000 later, I finally legally immigrated to the United States of America. I'm an American. Which gives me a very unique trifecta. I am Australian by birth, Texan by appointment, and American by choice. So, what is it that I believe? I believe in God, personal responsibility, the sanctity of human life, limited government, a strong national defence, the state of Israel, the right to bear arms. Up there with all of those things, ladies and gentlemen, I believe in the United States of America. And if there is one take-home message that I had for you today, there is one thing that I want you to recall when you go home later this evening and rest your head on your cold pillow. It is this: despite the undeniable, indisputable, and incontrovertible challenges, problems, threats, and realities currently afflicting the United States of America, this is still easily, hands down, head and shoulders, the greatest country in the history of the world. Every single time I speak to an elementary school, middle school, public high school or college audience, I look those students in the eyes and I tell them that the day that they were born in the United States of America is the day that they won the lottery of life. And they got the most incredible, the most amazing, the most remarkable, the most sensational head start on anyone and everyone everywhere else. This is the best country in the world to be born. This is the best country in the world to live in. This is the best country in the world to start a business in. This is the best country in the world to grow a business in. This is the only country in the world where success is not yet resented, but still admired and aspired to. This is the only country in the world where people aspire for greatness and disdain mediocrity. This is the only country in the world where you can colour outside of the lines and not be punished. This is the only country in the world where you can rise above any set of circumstances to go on and achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve. This is the only country in the world where your first language or last name means absolutely nothing. This is the only country in the world where failure is not fatal, where you can fall down 5,000 times, but if you've got the grit, determination and hustle, you can get up 5,001. Thomas Edison had 1,000 cracks at the light bulb. Colonel Sanders had his recipe for fried chicken rejected 1,009 times before he got a taker. Walt Disney went bankrupt twice, almost 3 times. Same story with Henry Ford. Abraham Lincoln lost his first 12 elections on the trot. Again and again and again throughout American history, resilience has been shown to be a key impact and a key ingredient of success. America's a unique place. After all, where else can you go bankrupt 3 times and become president of the United States of America? You see, ladies and gentlemen, America is special because America is not just a country, not simply a stretch of land, not merely a geographic entity. America is an idea. It is an ideal, a notion, a value system, an improbable and daring experiment that remains equally as improbable and daring today. It's the hope that banishes all hopelessness. It's the shot that was heard around the world and still is. There are 4 ways that a nation is said to be exceptional: culturally, militarily, economically, and scientifically. And on each of those 4 measurements, in almost 5,000 years of recorded human history, we have never before seen a nation dominate each of those 4 spheres to the extent that the United States of America has. But none of that success, none of that power, none of that wealth, none of that influence, none of that might just happened. None of it was accidental. None of it was incidental. No, to the contrary. All of it was extraordinarily deliberate, extremely intentional. You see, the most brilliant men to have ever walked this earth were our founders, who understood that the way to unlocking human ingenuity, the way to unleashing human creativity, the way to driving human accomplishment was to make sure that men and women were as unencumbered as possible by the need for government approvals and red tape. It's for precisely the same reason that the United States of America has ascended to the position of guardian of liberty, as the custodian of civilization. I want you to contemplate for just a fleeting moment what the world might look like without the United States of America. North Korea would invade South Korea. Taiwan would be overrun by China. War, maybe nuclear, would break out in the Middle East. Russia would attempt to rebuild the Soviet Empire. Islamic terrorists would act with complete impunity. Tyrants in North Africa would run around even more mercilessly than what they already do. Individual cataclysmic natural disasters would have no concerted, coordinated response effort. Individual liberty would gradually diminish and ultimately become extinct. That's what a world without the United States of America looks like. And that's why it's in the interest of everyone, no matter who you are, where you come from, what you do, where you live, what your first language was. Even if you had never so much as even set your little toe on American soil, it's in your interest that America be as robust, as healthy, as self-assertive, and as confident as possible. Why? Because the equation is very simple. What is good for America is good for the world. When America is strong, the world is strong. When America is weak, the world is a weak and dangerous place. Now that's not my hypothesis that I've scribbled on the back of a cocktail napkin after a few too many painkillers from the West Texas rehab center. We were living that reality real time. Up until just 2.5, 3 years ago, when we had elites at the highest levels of the federal government that were insistent on ensuring that America retreated in the world, that it vacated its traditional role of leading from the front and instead elected to lead from behind. And the reality is that while it is now calming with the new administration, the world remains an infinitely more dangerous place than it has been for a very, very long period of time. Ladies and gentlemen, political correctness is killing the United States of America. You see, most people think that political correctness is simply an imposition on speech, just something that tells us what we can say and what we can't say. Well, that would be egregious enough with our proud tradition of the First Amendment. But I want to tell you that political correctness is infinitely more than that. Political correctness is a way of life. It's a mentality. It's a cultural mindset, an attitude that says that we should strive for mediocrity and not greatness, that we shouldn't colour outside of the lines lest we be punished, that we should resent those that have differentiated themselves professionally, financially, or in some other fashion more so than us. Political correctness mandates that success and achievement be a measurement of how much butt you kiss as opposed to how much butt you kick. What could be more un-American and un-Texan than that? Political correctness is a choking conformity, a totalitarian ideology that strips us of our individualism, eliminates our patriotism, removes our self-confidence. And in doing so, political correctness is transforming the American dream into the European nightmare. And why on earth would we want to follow the trajectories of the once grand nations of Europe, now with demography in decline, Islam in the ascendancy, where moral clarity has become conspicuously absent? Those cultures, those societies have become moribund and pedestrian and grey and vanilla. There's no passion, there's no hope, there are no dreams, there are no inventions, there's no innovation. That's not the future that we want for the United States of America. That's not the future that we want for our children and our grandchildren and our great-great-great-grandchildren. And that's certainly not the future that our founders had envisioned for us. You see, America is complex, but American exceptionalism is really, really simple. It's individualism, not collectivism. Patriotism, not relativism. God, not government. Faith, not secularism. It's e pluribus unum, not radical multiculturalism. These are the virtues and values that have differentiated the United States of America from every other society on this earth in almost 5,000 years of recorded human history. But proponents and advocates of political correctness would seek to eliminate every single one of those points of differentiation, rendering America just another country, just another place. Ladies and gentlemen, it's very personal to me. I chose to come here. I came to make, not take. To give, not receive. To join the place, not complain about it or change it. I came because I knew that this was the greatest country in the history of the world. I came because I knew that this was the place that would afford me the most freedom and the most opportunity to achieve the dreams that God put in my heart. But I also came here in no small measure to make sure that the United States of America does not turn out like the country I felt I had to leave. Most Americans, like most people around the world, think that in Australia people box kangaroos by day and wrestle crocodiles by night. If that were the case, maybe I might still be there. But the international perception is vastly different to the domestic reality. Australia is and has always been an infinitely more European place in instinct, in proclivity, in values, in setup, and anybody that has even just a cursory knowledge of important policy areas such as gun ownership and healthcare will know that America truly does stand alone when it comes to values, culture, and setup. So I am on a mission to make sure that every single American, from north to south, east to west, and everywhere in between, understands how lucky and how fortunate and how blessed they are to call America home. But particularly our young, especially the next generation of Americans, those that will be bequeathed with the most awesome responsibility conceivable, keeping the American dream and experiment alive. I want them to know how lucky and how blessed and how fortunate they are to call America home. I want every child in this country to have a heart burning for America. I don't just want our children being lukewarm about America. I want them to be on fire for America. I want to make sure that we pass on what it means to be an American. That's why I set up an organisation called FLAG, the Foundation for Liberty and American Greatness, one of the fastest growing non-profits in America today. FLAG is all about two things. Number one, teaching civics, and number two, putting patriotism back in public schools. We do it three ways. Number one, through the creation and distribution of resources. Number two, through classroom visits. And number three, through professional development programs for teachers, where we teach teachers how to incorporate American exceptionalism and patriotism into their lesson plans and general school environment. In 2016, I went in to 42 different public schools. And I knew that what I would find would be bad, but nothing could possibly have prepared me for what I would discover. I found that an overwhelming majority of young Americans have next to not even a basic knowledge or understanding or appreciation of our three founding documents: the United States Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Federalist Papers. Last year, FLAG teamed up with a leading polling agency in the world called YouGov, and we interviewed 1,179 young people on their feelings towards the United States of America. Again, we would expect it to be bad, but nothing could possibly have prepared us for those results. And some of these statistics may sound familiar because the press had a field day with them. 46% of those interviewed said that Barack Obama had a greater impact on America than George Washington. 28% said that they found absolutely nothing wrong with burning the American flag. 24% agreed with the statement that America was never great and never will be. 32% favoured socialism over capitalism. And my personal favourite, 16% of those aged between the ages of 15 and 24 thought that Judge Judy served on the Supreme Court. Ladies and gentlemen, we are losing. We are losing our country. We are losing our country. Our children don't believe in American values. They believe in European values. Our children are being indoctrinated from the moment they walk into their elementary school. Many conservatives think that the solution lies with colleges. I want to tell you how profoundly I disagree with that. I think by the time in 2019 a student arrives on their college campus for the first time, the indoctrination that began the moment they walk through the gates of their elementary school 18 or 19 years earlier is well and truly complete. The real battle for the heart and soul of this country is in elementary schools, middle schools, and public high schools. That is where we are going to be able to save America. So in 2017, FLAG, based on all of my travels around America, going into different public schools, seeing how dire the situation was, FLAG teamed up with interns from the late Justice Antonin Scalia's office, and we got the United States Constitution into simple, plain, easy to understand English that even a 5th grader can comprehend. We launched it on Constitution Day live on Fox News with a special 3-hour event on the Fox News Plaza. And so successful was this resource that in April of 2018 we launched the world's first kid-friendly Declaration of Independence, and we launched it at the Trump Hotel in Washington DC with our FLAG board member, Mr. Bill O'Reilly. Do we miss Bill? These resources have been an absolute rocket ship for us. And we completed the set in January this year with the world's first kid-friendly Students' Federalist Papers. I'm proud to tell you that we have at least one of these 3 resources in the hands of more than 500,000 American public school students in all 50 states. So successful are our resources, we get testimonials from public school teachers in California. And if you can believe it, in Los Angeles County, in the belly of the beast, we have 1,200 of our constitutions in the hands of 1,200 students in the Los Angeles School District. So we are having an unheralded impact on making sure that we rescue this next generation. But students and parents are just one part of the equation. Teachers are the other part. Civics is not being taught anymore. Civics is not being taught anymore. Definitely not in the way that you remember. And we want to make civics great again. And so FLAG is hosting a teacher conference in Philadelphia, an all expenses paid trip for a teacher to come for a 3-day conference in Philadelphia. They get to tour Constitution Hall, the Liberty Bell. They leave with 40 different lesson plans ready to go for Monday morning the moment they get back into their classroom. We are going to make sure that teachers are equipped with the resources and the thinking and the training to make sure that they can pass on civics to their students. And this is the multiplier effect. If you think about how many students a teacher will reach during their career, and then you multiply that by thousands, that's how we make sure that this remains an American century. In addition to that, our FLAG has also declared war on this idea that every child has got to go to college. I went to college, I got 2 degrees, I had the time of my life. But not everybody is made for college. And we need plumbers and electricians and machinists and entrepreneurs. And there are some really good reasons that we do not want our children going to college unless they are tailor-made for it. Number one, we want them to avoid the almost inevitable liberal indoctrination that awaits them on any college campus. Number two, we don't want to saddle them up to their eyeballs in debt. Student loan debt is at an epidemic high, more than $1.3 trillion. Number three, we want to virtually guarantee them a job when they're finished. How tragic it is when a student has done 3 or 4 years of college, they graduate and then they can't find work. And number 4, and most attractive of all, we want to give the maximum amount of young Americans the chance to go and do something very American. Start their own business. Employ people, create wealth, achieve the American dream. If you go and get your training as a plumber or an electrician, you can do a few years, you can get your training under your belt, and then at some point you can say, I'm going to go out and do this myself. That's the American dream. That's the American way, and we want to make sure that we give as many young Americans the chance to go and do that one day. Ladies and gentlemen, let me close with this. America celebrated her 242nd birthday a few months ago. A time for great celebration, but I would also submit a time for sober and somber contemplation. Because if you go and ask any historian worth their salt how long great nations tend to last, they'll tell you somewhere between 230 and 270 years. And that puts America right in the kill zone. To make matters worse, for the first time, the enemies of the United States are no longer only foreign. They're also domestic. There are people within America rooting for America's failure. So that means the fight, the battle, the war, the struggle that we're going to have to embark on is going to be worse than any that we have been through before. We're going to need to summon every ounce of patriotism from the soles of our feet to the tops of our heads. But as a lifelong student of American history, I remain unswervingly convinced that our best days still lie ahead. From the early defeats by Britain in the War of Independence, to the loss of the Philippines, to Pearl Harbor, to the days following September 11, every single time America has been under attack, every single time freedom has been shoved up against a corner wall in a room, America has emerged bigger and stronger and better than ever before. It was Alexis de Tocqueville, the famous French nobleman who came out in the 18th century, who famously observed in his sociological masterpiece, Democracy in America, that the true genius of America lay in her ability to repair her faults. He noted the uncanny propensity to recorrect a trajectory. These sentiments were echoed by my lifelong political hero, the great wartime Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and half American himself, Sir Winston Churchill, who affectionately jibed that America always does the right thing after exhausting every other option. And here I stand before you today as a third outsider, telling you that I identify the same boomerang spirit, the same resilience in the American people. Ladies and gentlemen, in the last 60 years there has been a culture war raging in this country. But only one side has been fighting it. They've done it with lies, violence, the threat of violence, and the hostile takeovers of universities. They are dedicated to nothing short of our annihilation. And in that pursuit, they are governed only by two things: the rules of Saul Alinsky and the Chicago mob. While this culture war is raged, we conservatives, we hard-working, regular, everyday, ordinary Americans have been busy paying off our mortgages, growing our businesses, saving up money to send our children off to college. And we have consistently and constantly sought the high ground and elevated things like collegiality and dignity and propriety, to the point now when we wake up in the morning and we almost choke on our bacon and eggs as we watch Fox and Friends, because we cannot believe what we are seeing. The local high school down the road is changing its name. The statue outside the courthouse that's been there for eons has been designated for removal. The elementary school 2 counties away is officially changing the school calendar to read from Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day. Day in and day out, there is a relentless assault on American values, a relentless assault on everything that we know and we love. And it is for two reasons. Number one, all of the institutions that shape and generate our culture are run by people that want to fundamentally transform this country. Their words, not mine. They don't love America the way that you and I love America. They don't love the things about America that you and I love about America. They want to turn America into something that it has never been, something that it isn't, and something that it should never be. And the second reason is the passion gap. And it pains me to say this, but the only way we are going to have any kind of chance to win this fight is by being brutally candid with ourselves. And let me tell you, for the last 60 years, the left in this country have wanted to destroy America more than we have wanted to protect it. They have wanted to destroy it more than we have wanted to protect it. And that's why they are winning. Because ultimately, what this boils down to is nothing more than a street fight. It's going to come down to who wants it the most. And until we can match them in intensity, in passion, in desire, in strategy, we're going to continue to lose the country that we love so dearly. This is a fight that we did not start, but it is one that we will finish. This is a fight that it turns out we need. This right here, ladies and gentlemen, is freedom's Colosseum. Freedom is going to live or freedom is going to perish. Right here on the soil that you sit on and I stand on right now. And the pages of the history books yet to be written will reflect the actions that we determined to take at this junction. Did we invest in the next generation of Americans? Did we pass on what it means to be an American? Did we teach Americanism? Did we make every conceivable effort to secure the Republic? Did we continue to be intimidated and silenced by political correctness? Or did we relegate it right where it belongs, on the dusty bottom bookshelf of some third-rate library in the middle of nowhere? These are the questions whose answers will determine what happens not just to America, but to the entire world. But I want to give you hope. Because of the work that I do, I have the great privilege of being able to be in a different city almost every day. And I want to tell you that there are patriots in the unlikeliest of places fighting gallantly for our values and our cause. There are more of us than there are them. But they're louder than us. But we are the silent majority. We need to go and knock on every door. We need to speak to every one of our relatives and friends and acquaintances. We need to go into our church and pull our fellow congregants out of the pews and into the voting booths. We need to be all in for America. Because if we're all in for America, we are all in for civilization. We must do this. We will do this. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. God bless you. God bless Texas. And God bless the United States of America. Let's go out and kick some anti-American butt. Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got some time for some questions. So please feel free. Yes, ma'am. If you just, yes, I'll repeat the question. So.
Oh, I'm a high school teacher here.
Great.
So I understand exactly what you're talking about. And I'm wondering how one gets to Philadelphia to the conference.
Well, that's a really good question. I think you are a perfect candidate for this particular brochure. And tell your friends about it.
All right.
I've got a whole bunch for you to go around and give out. So, But we're very excited about that. It is the first time in the conservative movement that an organisation has ever held a professional development program for teachers. What's really special about this is that teachers will attend the conference and then they will receive credit from their school district for having attended towards their hours of professional development that they need to do each year to be able to qualify to keep teaching. They'll also obviously get to have excursions to all of the wonderful sites of Philadelphia that are so meaningful to our history and to our values. Yes, there was another question.
Well, I don't know, you may be doing a more important work, but otherwise I was going to ask, have you considered running for office, and if so, what? Because
Well,
it's very motivational.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Right now, we're really focused on FLAG. FLAG is growing in leaps and bounds every single day. It started as an idea in my head, and fast forward, this year we're going to raise $1 million. We have got a staff of 6, and we are reaching hundreds of thousands of students, and I'm not content with that. I want to reach tens of millions, because that's the only way that we're going to be able to save our country. That's the only way we're going to be able to restore America to its full potential. Our president is doing an outstanding job of fighting the left, of standing up for what we believe in, and I firmly believe that this is our time now, with the political winds at our back, with him in office. This is our time to make inroads in the culture, because there's only one thing that trumps politics, pardon the expression, and that is culture. You can have as many political victories as you want, but political victories by their very nature are short-term. And once the political winds change and the other side gets in, they immediately undo everything that our guy did. And we have to start at scratch. But if we can reach the hearts and minds of people, that's going to be the real way of securing America and America's future. Are there any? Yes, ma'am.
I promised my husband I won't ask any questions. But I broke
You're
down.
breaking your promise. That's okay.
What do you think is one major factor of change in the last maybe 5-6 decades in America that has led to this problem?
Well, I think it all started back in the Reagan, or probably even earlier than that, in the 1960s and whatever else. But I think the left really became organised culturally back in the early 80s, particularly after 1984, when they were so resoundingly defeated. When Ronald Reagan swept to re-election with 49 out of 50 states, whipping Walter Mondale. I'm sure many of you guys remember that. I was actually born 2 months before that happened. But in any event, the left could find no refuge when it came to national political office. And so what they then decided to do was, okay, maybe politics is not the vehicle with which we can achieve our aims. Maybe if we go and take over the media industry and the local school district and the university and entertainment and movies and Hollywood and everything else, then one day we'll be in a position to, and this is what the left do, they use all of those institutions as a seedbed to grow and sprout leftist ideology. And now we're at a point where, like I say, no matter who is in office, the culture is owned by the left. It is 100% owned by the left, unless you're in West Texas. Okay, next question. Yes, sir.
How do you finance this all-expense paid trip for these teachers?
That's an excellent question. So we are supported by very generous patriots all across the country. So our donors support all of FLAG's work. FLAG is a 501c3 organisation, so we are 100% tax deductible, and we have generous patriots around the country that believe in the work that we're doing, that believe that action needs to be taken in elementary, middle and public schools. They're worried about the future, they're worried about the American dream disappearing, and they want us to fight for it and do something about it. And that's certainly what we're doing. So we're able to call upon the generosity of those people to fund teachers to travel to come, to stay, to do all of that kind of stuff. So there's more information if you'd like to support FLAG. We'd love to get your help, whether you want to sponsor a teacher, whether you want to make sure that a certain amount of constitutions are given out, or whether you just want to support our operations. We would love the support, because the only way that FLAG is able to function is, like I say, through the generosity of patriots around the country. Yes, sir.
How well are you received in different school districts, I guess in different states?
Yes, it's a really good question. It's a really good question. So we now have we've had school visits in 19 different states, and I can tell you that almost uniformly we are received very well. Now, you must remember that when we're going into these schools, we are not being political in any way at all. So when we're going into a school, we're explaining to students that the day that they were born here, or the day that they moved here, is the day that they won the lottery of life. That they have these incredible opportunities, that nobody is going to stop them, that the only limit to their ambition is their imagination. We explain how right this country is to make money and to do well and to achieve the American dream. So we're motivational, and then on top of that we're teaching the Constitution, teaching the values. So I think one of the reasons that we're so successful is the way that we market it. So schools don't see us as conservative Trump people. But we're going in there and we're basically telling kids, look, let me tell you a few things that you might not know about America. And we have a whole team of people that go out and go to these schools. But let me tell you what I tell these students. When I go into a school, I explain to these students that how different the United States of America is than Australia. I explain that the only country in the world that has primary elections is the United States of America. In no other country, if you want to run for elected office, in no other country do everyday voters actually get a say. It's a group of men in a cigar-filled back room that determine whether or not you've paid your dues, whether or not it's your turn, whether or not you're going to go along to get along. In no other country would Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, any of these kind of people be electable. Only in America. When I go there and I explain to them that voting in Australia is compulsory. If you don't vote, you get fined $82. Okay? You get fined $82. So it's a very, very different place. And I share those experiences to get them to understand. And they've never heard any of this stuff. Or I'll talk about tipping and explain how tipping is such a uniquely American concept. And I know that you might not think much about tipping, but when you really break it down, you really can't imagine anything more American for 3 reasons. Number 1, there's an incentive to do the best possible job you can do. Number 2, there are no limits to what you might receive. And number 3, within tipping there's an inherent kind of, lots of people that work in the hospitality industry rely on tips to make ends meet. So there's also a moral dimension to it. So you've got the moral dimension, there's no limit on it, and you've got an incentive to do the best possible job. There's nothing more American than that. But did you know that tipping, the only country in the world that has tipping as an integrated part of the economy is the United States? Next time you travel, have a look at your receipt, and if they're asking for a tip, it's only because they heard your American accent. Okay? Don't give a tip when you travel anywhere else. You thank me later. Okay, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
How long before you work on putting prayer back in school?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That's a really good question.
Founded on it, yeah.
Yeah, and if you have a look at the recent events in El Paso, Dayton, there's all this talk about guns, gun control. There's no talk about the people actually behind the gun. And there's no discussion about how it's just coincided with the absence of prayer in schools, with the prevalence of video games that are violent, with mental illness no longer being policed the right way. Okay? These are issues of mental health as opposed to guns. But you're right, we do need to get prayer back in schools. We do need to make sure that every child has got a firm biblical foundation. I think that that's really important because this is a Christian country. I don't care what the left say, I don't care what Democrats say, this is a Christian country. You're free to worship whoever you want. There can be other religions, but at the end of the day, our values come from the Judeo-Christian system. And if you don't want to be a part of that, if that's not for you, send them back. Yes.
Along with that, I think that, we are responsible, because when the prayer was taken out of school, we didn't speak up. When the Ten Commandments were taken out of school, we didn't speak up. And what's wrong with the Ten Commandments? It tells you don't steal, don't kill, don't lie, don't cheat.
Yes.
And you were afraid that, they might observe that?
Well, I think in many ways, America has been a frog in water. And the water temperature has been cranked up, and we've been boiled alive without even knowing it. Whereas, had we had the boiling water and the frog jumped in, we would have jumped right back out. So this has happened to us, and we didn't realise it, but here's the lesson. You give the left an inch, they will take a mile.
It didn't take Madam O'Hara very long to get it out of school, so it shouldn't take us that long to put it back.
Put it back, yeah. So that's the story with the left. I can tell you now, with all this discussion about gun control, back in 2010 I spoke in Rogers, Arkansas, which is right next to Bentonville, Arkansas, which is the home of Walmart. And I had an opportunity to speak at Walmart, and then I also spoke to the Daisy Gun Factory, which happens to be based in Rogers. And as a gesture of goodwill, they let me assemble my very own Daisy Red Ryder BB gun. And they had a nice inscription on the butt of the gun which said, "To Nick, a phenomenal American patriot." And they said, "Look, Nick," because they lost a lot of business when Australia changed its laws back in 1996. When my father grew up in Australia, a Daisy Red Ryder BB gun was under every Christmas tree, in every home. But in 1996, when the gun laws changed, they also outlawed BB guns. Okay, they outlawed BB guns, if you can believe that. And so Daisy was obviously down there fighting it, pushing for it. So they said, "Look, we're going to disable this gun. You won't actually be able to shoot it, but we want you to have it. So just be aware we're going to send it." Anyway, several weeks went by, and I was back in Australia, and I got a letter in the mail. And the letter was from Australian Customs and Immigration. And it said, "Dear Mr. Adams, we are in possession of an illegal firearm addressed to you. Should you wish to claim it, you're going to need to provide the following." I had to have a gun safety course, a police check, all these kinds of things. Anyway, there was a number that I said you could ring if you had any questions. I rang, and I got the most hapless bureaucrat imaginable. And when I spoke to this lady, we went through and she said, yes, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, you've got to do this. Then she asked me, she said, "Mr. Adams, do you have a safe for the gun?" I said, "A safe?" I said, "What for?" She said, "The gun, sir." And I said, "Look, are we really talking about the right thing? This is a disabled toy. You want me to store it in a safe?" She said, "Well, what were you planning on doing with it?" I said, "Well, to be honest with you, that wall kind of looked pretty good." And anyway, and her, I'm sure you've had this experience when you're talking to somebody but you can't see them, but you can just imagine their face. Okay? This lady's jaw was on the ground. And she said, "Mr. Adams, young man, do you realise you could hold up a bank with that gun?" So I did the math, and it was going to cost $2,100, okay, to get this Daisy Red Ryder BB gun. But I could probably go to Walmart right now and pick up for $19.95. And unfortunately, I didn't have the money, and I had to forfeit it for destruction by the Crown. So, but it is a very instructive anecdote for you to remember that if you give the left an inch, they'll say, "Oh, we're going to come after this, or we're going to come after that," and in the end, You give them a little bit, they'll take it all. So the idea is not to budge a single inch. Any other questions? Yes, do we have time?
There's a lady.
No? Okay, no more questions.
There's a lady over
Okay, I know. Well, is it a quick question?
Very quick.
Okay, yes ma'am.
I met you about 4 years ago.
Yes.
And the next day after you had spoken, you were taken out to somebody's ranch. Would you like to tell the story of the first time you ever shot a gun?
Can you remind me? I don't know
You
which
were
one.
wearing shorts and you had on sandals.
Okay.
And then
Okay, that wasn't the first time I shot a gun, but okay, yes. I went out to a ranch in close to Llano,
Yeah.
Texas. Yes, I went out to a ranch and I wasn't prepared, and they said, let's go shooting. I said, okay, and all I had was a pair of shorts, and so I just shot up some, what's the fun stuff that you shoot up and explodes? No, not no, the really, no, the like explosive stuff. That's it? Tannerite. Yeah. So, anyway, I did. I went out there, had a good time. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really sorry that we're out of time, but I do want to very quickly tell you about my 4 New York Times best-selling books that I have here. The first was The American Boomerang, How the World's Greatest Turnaround Nation Will Do It Again. It's got a foreword by Lieutenant Colonel Alan West. It was endorsed by a host of conservative luminaries, including Dr. Ben Carson, Governor Mike Huckabee, but the one I'm most proud of, Chuck Norris. My second book was Retaking America, Crushing Political Correctness. It's got a foreword by Dennis Prager, founder of Prager University, conservative radio titan. It was also endorsed by Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North and the Fire's Dana Perino. My third book was Green Card Warrior, My Quest for Legal Immigration and an Illegal System. This is the book that is historic. This is the first one ever to be endorsed by a sitting President of the United States. It tells my story of being persecuted by a left-wing official at the Sydney Consulate and put on a no-fly list. And then my most recent book is Class Dismissed, Why College Isn't the Answer, which explains why it's so important to keep the American dream, why we've got to make sure that we're making sure that all of our children know that there are other options other than college, but not everyone's made for college. And actually this book, very special, in February of this year on 5th Avenue in New York City at the Barnes & Noble, so successful was this book that the entire front window of Barnes & Noble for the month of February was just this. So anyway, we do have all 4 books here. We're doing a very special West Texas deal here tonight. All the books are going to be signed, autographed, personalised, blessed. That's what it takes. One book is $25, 2 for $40, 3 for $50, or you can get the whole set signed, autographed, personalised for $60. We do also have our student resources, the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, Federalist Papers. They're available for a donation. Any donation that you'd like to set. And then I do want to also encourage you to think about supporting FLAG. Come and get some information. We have our mid-year briefing. Kelly's going to hold it up. You can read about what we've been up to and what we're doing. We have various giving levels. We have a Freedom Club, a George Patton Club, a Churchill Club, Neil Armstrong Club, Lincoln Club. So we'd love for you to consider supporting the work that we do. We are a 501c3. We are 100% tax deductible. If you're in a position to donate to us, we would really love you to do that. And then also, if you're not in a position to donate, but you know somebody that is, please consider making an introduction for us so that I or members of my board, which include Alan West, Bill O'Reilly, Dennis Prager, Pete Hegseth, we can go and visit with those people as well. So, for the books, please make all checks out to Nick Adams. We're taking credit card, checks and cash, although cash is king. And for any donations to FLAG, please make them out to FLAG. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen.
when I asked Nick what his favorite snacks were for he and his parents, I put together a little West Texas gift bag for him. He said, well, I love the European chocolates. So their gift baskets were pails. I put a West Texas pail together for them. I don't know if you noticed that. Okay, that was a pail. But they were filled with some chocolates from Cowboy Up Chocolates here in San Angelo. And a bit of information about our Cowboy Up Chocolates, locally made chocolates by a local chocolatier. They've recently been named one of the top 10 chocolatiers in the United States. Isn't that interesting? And for the 2020 calendar, whatever that calendar is that chocolatiers all aspire to be in, they'll be featured in that. So anyway, but I wanted to present you with a Yellow Rose of Texas box of Cowboy Up chocolates.